The phone rings at 6:47 in the evening. You do not recognize the number. A recorded voice tells you this is a collect call from a juvenile detention facility. Press 1 to accept charges. The cost is 99 cents per minute. You press 1 because you would press 1 no matter what it cost. And then you hear your child's voice. Smaller, controlled, careful. He says he's okay. He says the food is fine. He says not to worry. But something already sounds different. I ran level 8 and level 10 juvenile facilities in Florida. Secure programs, locked programs. I know what happens after that phone call because I watched kids walk through intake every day, and I watched families try to understand a system that does not explain itself clearly. So this is what I want to do right now. No slogans, no TV version, no lecture. Just the truth about what actually happens inside juvenile detention, what families are usually not told, and what you can do that actually matters. When a child first arrives at detention, the first goal of the facility is control. Not comfort, not understanding, control. Their clothes are taken, their property is bagged and tagged, phone gone, jewelry gone, hoodie gone, sometimes family photos gone too. A lot of kids realize in that moment that they no longer decide anything for themselves. Not when they eat, not when they sleep, not when they call home. Then comes medical screening and mental health screening. Sometimes that process is careful and professional. Sometimes it's rushed because the facility is short-staffed and somebody is trying to process 6 kids at once before shift change. And families need to understand this part clearly. A child can be in real emotional crisis and still pass those screenings, especially boys, especially kids raised to hide fear. A 15-year-old who is panicking internally can sit in a chair and say, "I'm good," 10 times in a row because he already understands that staying calm keeps attention off him. Then comes the part families almost never get properly prepared for, the strip search. Facilities call it policy, intake procedure, visual search. But for many kids, especially kids with trauma histories, it becomes one of the most humiliating moments of their life. And I want to say this carefully because families are already carrying enough fear. The point is not to traumatize you with details. The point is to understand that this is not emotionally neutral for a child, especially a child who has never been locked up before. Policies vary by state and facility, but families should ask questions anyway. Ask for the intake search policy in writing. Ask who conducts searches. Ask what privacy protections exist. Ask how searches are documented. In writing matters. A phone conversation disappears. Paper stays. After intake, your child gets classified and assigned to a unit. That decision shapes almost everything that comes next. Who they're housed with, who they eat around, who they sleep near, whether they feel safe, whether they become a target. Facilities will tell you classification is based on objective factors like age, charges, history, and behavior. And some of it is. But I'm telling you from inside the system that staffing shortages and bed space affect placement all the time. Sometimes kids are housed where there's room, not where they actually belong. Now let me explain what daily life inside usually looks like, because television has confused a lot of people about this. Most juvenile detention is not non-stop violence. Most of it is repetition. Wake up around 5:30 or 6 in the morning, lights on, counts, breakfast, school, worksheets, waiting, movement in lines, more waiting, maybe recreation if staffing allows it, dinner, phone calls if your child still has privileges, and if the unit schedule reaches the phones on time. Then lights out, again and again and again. And over time, kids adapt. That adaptation can scare families because it changes how children sound. Detention rewards emotional control. Kids learn quickly that being loud, emotional, frustrated, or reactive brings attention they do not want. So some children get quieter, flatter emotionally, not because they stopped loving you, because they are learning survival behavior in an institution. Now let's talk about discipline, because this is where many Black and Latino families start noticing patterns fast. Most facilities use behavior systems, Write-ups, privilege levels, point systems, room restriction, loss of phone access, loss of recreation, and here is where discretion matters. The same behavior does not always get the same response. One kid gets redirected, another gets written up for defiance. One kid gets a warning, another gets removed from the group. Families already feel this unfairness. I'm explaining how it actually enters the system operationally. A lot of disciplinary categories are subjective: disrespect, non-compliance, aggressive posture. Those phrases leave room for interpretation, and interpretation is where bias lives. Not every staff member is racist, not every facility operates the same way, but racial disparity inside juvenile detention is real, and families should stop doubting themselves when they notice patterns. Now, we need to talk about room confinement. Some places call it separation, some call it cool down, some call it behavior management. Families hear soft language and imagine something temporary and harmless. What matters is the actual condition. If your child is being kept alone in a room for long periods with little human contact, limited school access, reduced recreation, and isolation from peers, that matters no matter what label the facility uses. And medically, psychologically, this is serious for adolescents. Children are still developing emotionally and neurologically. Extended isolation can increase depression, anxiety, panic, self-harm risk, and emotional shutdown. Families are often not immediately notified. That's important to understand. You may only find out because your child mentions it during a short phone call, so ask direct questions. How many hours are you in the room? Are you getting school? Are you seeing mental health staff? Did they write a report? And then document the answers, dates, times, names, again in writing whenever possible, because visibility creates pressure. Now let's go back to those phone calls. The collect call, the expensive minutes, the rushed conversations. Families sometimes think their child sounds distant because they're angry or pulling away emotionally. Usually that is not what's happening. Inside detention, vulnerability can feel dangerous. Kids stop saying certain things out loud, especially over recorded lines. Most facility calls are monitored, so tell your child not to discuss details of the case over the phone. Focus on safety, health, school, medication, treatment, and conditions inside. And understand this too. Communication inside detention often depends on money. Phone systems are usually private contracts. Families pay. Commissary costs money. Video visitation costs money in some facilities. And poor families feel that pressure immediately, especially working parents already juggling rent, transportation, and lost work hours. Now here is the part I really want families to hold on to. You are not powerless inside this process. You have more leverage than the system usually makes clear. You can ask for policies in writing. You can ask for disciplinary reports. You can request education records. If your child has an IEP or 504 plan, those protections do not disappear because they were detained. You can request education meetings. You can document medication interruptions. You can involve the attorney early instead of waiting until things get worse. You can ask for room confinement logs. You can ask who your child's case manager is. You can ask how grievances are filed. And families need to stop feeling embarrassed about asking questions. The system depends on confusion. The calmer and more informed you are, the harder your family becomes to ignore. That does not mean every complaint gets fixed immediately. It does not mean the system suddenly becomes fair. But documentation matters. Paper trails matter. Attorneys respond differently when families bring dates, reports, and written requests instead of only fear and frustration. And one more thing families need to hear. Release is not the finish line. A lot of kids come home carrying institutional habits nobody prepared the family for. Sleep problems, emotional distance, hypervigilance, quick anger, numbness. And then probation conditions start immediately. Curfews, programs, check-ins, school problems, transportation problems. Families need re-entry planning before release day, not after. Ask for meetings. Ask for school transfer information. Ask what programs are mandatory. Ask what happens if there's a waiting list. Technical violations send a lot of kids back into custody, not new crimes, technical problems. And too many families find that out too late. So if you remember nothing else from this conversation, remember this. Stay calm, document everything. Ask for policies in writing. Keep the attorney informed early, and keep contact with your child steady, even when the calls feel awkward or emotionally flat, because that child on the other end of the line is still listening for home in your voice. And once families understand how this system actually works, they become much harder to push into silence.